I want you to imagine something with me. You're sitting in your living room, maybe with a cup of tea in your hand. You feel fine, maybe a little tired from the day, but nothing unusual. The phone rings. It's your neighbor sounding worried. Her husband, who seemed perfectly healthy just yesterday, was rushed to the hospital this morning. Heart attack. No warning, no chest pain before. Just sudden. Now here's the part that still shocks me, even after decades in cardiology. In many of these cases, it's not a huge clogged artery that causes the crisis. It's something much smaller. Something most people don't even know they have a vulnerable plaque inside the artery wall. I've worked with thousands of patients over the years, most of them over 50, and one thing I've learned is this: the most dangerous heart problems are often the ones you can't see, can't feel, and don't expect. We often picture a heart attack as a slow buildup, years of gunk piling inside your arteries until they're nearly closed. But the truth is far more unsettling and far more important to understand if you want to protect yourself. So let's start here. What exactly is a plaque? Think of your arteries like smooth, flexible tubes. Inside the walls are lined with a delicate, silky layer called the endothelium. When you're young and healthy, it's like brand new copper piping. Nothing sticks to it. But life happens. High blood pressure, smoking, excess LDL cholesterol, high blood sugar, they all chip away at that smooth lining. Imagine tiny scratches forming inside the pipe. Those little injuries are the perfect landing spot for LDL cholesterol particles floating in your blood. Once LDL sneaks into the artery wall, it can get trapped there. And over time, it undergoes a kind of chemical decay called oxidation, like butter left out too long. Your body sees this oxidized cholesterol as a threat, so it sends in immune cells, little white blood cell, cleanup crews to swallow it up. But here's the catch: the more they eat, the fatter and more dysfunctional they get. We call these overstuffed cells foam cells because under a microscope, they look like tiny bubbles filled with fat. The foam cells pile up, mix with cholesterol and bits of dead cells, and form the core of what will become a plaque. Then your body tries to seal this mess off with a fibrous cap, a layer of scar tissue, like patching a hole in the wall. Sometimes that patch is thick and stable. Other times it's thin and fragile. And that's where the real danger begins. In my experience, there are really two types of plaque: stable plaque and vulnerable plaque. Stable plaque is like a slow-growing speed bump inside the artery. It can narrow the passageway over time, causing angina chest discomfort when you exert yourself or cramping in your calves when you walk, but it usually doesn't surprise you out of nowhere. We can often detect it through imaging and manage it with lifestyle changes or procedures. Vulnerable plaque, though, that's the heart's version of a ticking time bomb. It may not block much of the artery, sometimes only 30 to 50%, so it often goes completely unnoticed on scans. But its fibrous cap is paper thin, and inside is a soft, greasy core just waiting to burst. When that thin cap ruptures, the contents spill into the bloodstream. Your body panics, thinking you have been injured, and immediately forms a blood clot right there. Within minutes, the artery can be completely sealed off. That's when heart attacks and strokes strike often in people who felt just fine the day before. Let me tell you about Charles. Charles was 62, a retired teacher with a passion for golf. He ate reasonably well, stayed active, and came in for his yearly checkups. His cholesterol was a bit high, but nothing alarming. One morning after climbing a flight of stairs, he felt a sudden wave of pressure in his chest. Within minutes, he was sweating, dizzy, and short of breath. At the hospital, the doctors found that one of his coronary arteries had been completely blocked by a clot. But here's the twist: the blockage wasn't from years of narrowing. It was from a small, previously unnoticed, vulnerable plaque that had ruptured. Charles survived thanks to quick treatment. But his story is a sobering reminder: the plaques you don't see coming are often the ones that hurt you the most. I want you to picture this like a slow-moving story inside your body. It doesn't start with a giant, dangerous blockage. It starts with something so small you wouldn't notice it. First, the inner lining of your artery, that smooth endothelium, takes a hit. Maybe your blood pressure has been a little high for years, pounding against the walls like waves hitting a dock. Or maybe your blood sugar has been creeping up, making the blood a little stickier. If you smoke, it's like blowing toxic smoke into a delicate silk curtain. It damages and weakens it over time. These tiny injuries are like open doors for LDL cholesterol particles. Once inside, they settle into the inner layer of the artery wall called the intima. And here's where things get tricky. They don't just sit there quietly. They oxidize. They turn rancid. Your immune system sees that rancid cholesterol like an intruder, and it sends in the cleanup crew, white blood cells called monocytes. Once they squeeze inside the artery wall, they transform into macrophages. These little soldiers start gobbling up cholesterol like Pac-Man eating dots. But there's so much of it that the macrophages get stuffed full bloated with fat, turning into foam cells. Over time, these foam cells die. Their contents, fat debris, inflammatory chemicals spill into the surrounding area, adding fuel to the fire. The artery tries to wall off this toxic mess by building a fibrous cap, a kind of scar tissue shield made of collagen. And now, you have the beginnings of a plaque. Here's the scary part. This process can go on for years, even decades, without a single symptom. I've seen people in their 40s completely shocked to learn they already had plaques. And I've seen 20-year-old soldiers, healthy and strong, who during autopsies after accidents were found to have early streaks of plaque in their arteries. That's how early it can begin. But because it's silent, most people think, if I feel fine, I must be fine. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. Many of my patients who had heart attacks or strokes looked back and said, "Doctor, I had no idea anything was wrong. I never felt sick." This is why prevention is not just for people who are already sick, it's for everyone. Once you can see or feel the problem, it's often much further along than you think. Plaque has two main personalities, both dangerous in their own ways. One is the slow strangler. This is the stable plaque that gradually narrows your artery. Imagine putting a kink in a garden hose. Less water comes out, especially when you turn up the flow. That's why people with stable plaque might feel chest pressure or leg pain when they exercise. Their heart or muscles can't get enough blood under stress. The other is the sudden assassin. This is the vulnerable plaque with that paper-thin cap. It can be sitting quietly, not blocking much at all, when one day, maybe because of a spike in blood pressure, an inflammatory flare-up, or just bad luck, the cap ruptures. The fatty core bursts into the bloodstream, triggering a massive clot that can completely shut down the artery in minutes. The slow strangler gives you warnings. The sudden assassin often gives you none. Margaret was 58 when she came to see me. She was a grandmother, always busy cooking for her family and helping with the grandkids. She didn't smoke, rarely drank, and thought she ate pretty well, although she loved her fried chicken nights. One day while gardening, she felt an odd tightness in her jaw and neck. It wasn't painful, just strange. She brushed it off. 2 weeks later, while playing with her grandson, the same sensation hit, but this time she broke into a sweat. She went to the ER, where they found her main heart artery was 80% blocked by a plaque she never knew she had. She was lucky. She got treatment in time. But when I spoke to her later, she said something that stuck with me. "I always thought heart trouble came with chest pain. I didn't know it could whisper instead of shout." If I could show you one picture of what really drives heart disease, it wouldn't just be cholesterol floating around in your blood. It would be cholesterol and chronic inflammation working together like partners in crime. LDL, the so-called bad cholesterol, is the raw material. It's the stuff that can get stuck in your artery walls. But on its own, it's not always deadly. The real problem begins when inflammation joins the party. Think of inflammation as a fire. If you've ever seen a grease fire in a kitchen, you know it doesn't take much for things to get out of control. That's what happens when LDL becomes oxidized. It lights the match for inflammation. Your immune system rushes in to fight what it thinks is an invader, but in the process, it damages your own artery walls even more. And here's what's so tricky. Inflammation can come from many places. It might be from uncontrolled blood sugar, from high blood pressure pounding against your arteries day after day, from smoking, from certain infections, even from chronic stress. Yes, the emotional kind, because stress hormones like cortisol change how your body handles cholesterol. So when I talk to my patients, I don't just say lower your cholesterol, I say let's put out the fire. Here's the truth. Some risk factors are written in your DNA. If your parents or siblings had heart disease early in life, your chances are higher too. I've treated people who eat well, exercise, and still have high cholesterol because of their genes. But, and this is important, genes load the gun, lifestyle pulls the trigger. What you eat, how you move, how you handle stress. Whether you smoke, these choices can either speed up plaque formation or slow it down. Even if you have a family history, I've seen people add decades of healthy life by changing what they do every day. So I ask my patients, which part of your risk is out of your control and which part is a 100% in your hands? Because plaque is silent in the early years, one of our best strategies is to go looking for it before it causes trouble. There are several ways we can do this. Blood tests can tell us our LDL, HDL, triglycerides, and other markers. But that's only part of the picture. Imaging tests like carotid ultrasound can literally show if there's plaque building up in the neck arteries that feed the brain. Calcium scoring CT scans can reveal hardened calcified plaque in the heart arteries. I've had patients who thought they were fine get a calcium score back that showed significant plaque. That single test changed how they ate, how they exercised, even how they looked at stress. If your doctor recommends one of these tests, it's not to scare you, it's to give you a head start. Wouldn't you rather know there's a problem while you can still do something about it? One of my patients, Alan, was 62 and had been running 5 miles a day for years. Lean, energetic, no obvious problems. He came to see me because his brother had a heart attack at 59. We decided to check his calcium score just to be thorough. It came back high. He had significant plaque in his coronary arteries. Alan was shocked. He said, "Doctor, I've been running for decades. How could this happen?" The truth, he had great habits in many ways, but his diet was heavy on processed carbs and low on healthy fats. Plus, his genetics were working against him. We made changes, added a low-dose statin, and today his arteries are stable, and he's still running, but smarter about his fuel. Once plaque is there, can we remove it? Not completely. This isn't like snaking a drain or scraping rust off a pipe, but we can make it harmless. We do that by stabilizing it, making the cap thicker and stronger, reducing inflammation and lowering LDL so there's less material to build it up. This is where lifestyle changes and for some medication become powerful tools. The Mediterranean diet, regular activity, quitting smoking, managing blood pressure, keeping blood sugar steady, all of these can keep a plaque from growing or rupturing. And medications like statins, they don't just lower LDL, they calm inflammation in the plaque itself. I've seen patients' scans improve over the years simply because we took away the fuel and cooled the fire. If you want to keep your arteries clear and your heart strong, it's not about one big heroic effort. It's about the small choices you make every single day. Here's what I tell my patients over 50. Start with your plate. Fill half of it with colorful vegetables. Add a handful of nuts, almonds, walnuts, pistachios. They're like little bodyguards for your heart. Swap butter for olive oil. And if you eat meat, choose fish a few times a week, especially salmon or sardines rich in omega-3s. Move your body every day. You don't need to run marathons. A 30-minute brisk walk, some light resistance training, or even dancing in your living room can keep your blood flowing and your arteries flexible. And never underestimate the power of stress management. Deep breathing, prayer, meditation, or simply stepping outside for fresh air can lower inflammation in ways that medicine can't. Margaret came to me at 68, frightened. Her father died from a heart attack at 72, and she just learned her LDL was sky high. The ultrasound showed plaque in her carotid arteries. She asked me, "Is it too late?" I told her what I'm telling you now. It's never too late to change your story. Margaret started walking every morning with her neighbor. She replaced her sugary snacks with berries and Greek yogurt. We adjusted her medication. 6 months later, not only had her cholesterol drop, but she told me that she felt lighter, happier, and more energetic than she had in years. The plaque didn't disappear, but it stopped growing. And Margaret, she started living again without that constant shadow of fear. I want you to think of your arteries like a treasured old home. The walls have been standing for decades. Maybe there's a little wear, a little rust in the pipes. You can't rebuild it from scratch, but you can preserve it, strengthen it, and make it last for many more years. Prevention is not about fear. It's about respect for your body, for your future, for the life you still have ahead of you. Every healthy meal, every walk, every good night's sleep, it's like adding another brick to that wall, another coat of paint to protect what's inside. You may not see the results overnight, but trust me, your arteries will thank you for decades. So here's my questions to you. What story do you want your arteries to tell 10 years from now? Do you want them to whisper, I was cared for, I was protected, I stayed strong? Or do you want them to cry out in an emergency when it may be too late? The choice is in your hands every single day. If this message resonated with you, don't let it end here. Share it with a friend or family member who needs a gentle reminder about their heart health. And if you want more videos like this, clear, practical, and rooted in both science and real-life stories, hit that subscribe button now. Leave a comment below. What's one small change you can make this week for your heart? I read every single one, and your answer might inspire someone else to take the first step. And remember, you're not too old, it's not too late, and your heart is still worth protecting starting today.